All right, welcome back. This is the Escape course with Dr. VG. It's lesson 1, the introduction. So let's get into it. All right, welcome back. I mean, that's awesome. It makes me think of things. I mean, welcoming you back after we've taken a break, so on and so forth. If we did take a break and you were off and doing something, and part of some group, and you went off doing some things, eating lunch, it makes me think. That's all. I was a Marine. I did my time I served in the Marines. At the end of the late 80s, early 90s, I went over to I was part of that Desert Storm in Kuwait. But I took some of my courses out in 29 Palms, California. That's right. Loved that base. That was fun. Well, didn't necessarily love it at the time, but nevertheless, I was out there and studying up. I did, what was this? I fixed communications equipment, radios and things. And so I remember sitting in class, you'd go out to the chow hall, you come back after lunch, and you're sitting there, and they make you sit up straight. And so everybody's sitting there on a desk like this, right? But you get back after the break, and you're like tired because you just ate, and it's all warm, and you were in formation, came back, you're all tired, so you're doing this, right? And dive bombing. Online, you don't have to worry about this. But there, you had these characters sitting up in front of the classroom, these Marines who, for all intents and purposes, were just a continuation of drill instructors, doing their stuff. They're pointing, they're moving, they're explaining, they're asking questions. And if you are falling asleep, I put it this way, pray you're not snoring. Because I remember coming back from breaks, dudes up there drinking a Pepsi every once in a while, set it down. I remember this guy, he was sitting there dying, Bob, actually let his head sit, snoring. That guy picked up that Coke can and whizzed it right across the room, smacked right in his chest. So it's a Coke can, right? Pepsi, I don't know what it was. The stuff is spraying all over the place. It's all over his face. It's all over the chairs. And you can't say it. You can't even move. You can't laugh because this is going to happen to you too. So you just look at this guy. He's like jolting awake. And the instructor's like, hey, Sergeant Harris, take Sleeping Beauty outside and introduce him to the sun. Mix it up a little bit. They were mixing it up. You heard it. Out there, yes, sir. 1, 2, 3, yes, sir. So, this is the desert. You understand? This guy is out there sweating it up because it's 95 degrees. Sergeant Harris, or whatever his name was, is tearing into him. So, they're rolling him around in the dirt. So he comes back in after being drenched in Pepsi and now drenched in sweat and now muddy because he was rolling around in the dirt. And you feel bad because that stuff don't have it anymore. The Marine Corps they don't really allow that kind of stuff. That was back then. What are you talking? 30 years ago, I remember. That's how they rolled back then. Honestly, I don't know what they do in 29 Palms today, but there was a certain level of discipline and order and expectations that were set forth. And as Marines, you were expected to adhere to that. I'm not going to throw Coke cans through the screen. You understand what I'm saying? That doesn't exist. We don't have that kind of technology. I don't have a force. I don't. So there's no need for that. If you feel tired, go take a nap. You understand? Go take a nap. Go sleep. Come back and listen to me some other time. But I'm back here, I digress. We're looking at our introduction here. You go out on the week outline, and what you'll find is information regarding system timeout. So what you'll find here is information regarding the real outline for the course, what you actually need to do, so on and so forth. Let me log back on real quick. And so we'll get that stuff there. Bring you out. Down to the bottom there. I apologize. There. So we're back out at the week outline, and we're looking at what the system or what the course is actually structured to be. So if you were in a formal setting, then you could find this information here. It kind of guides you. I mean, these are the times and the concepts that you're supposed to be exploring. It even spells out the break. That's where, 5 minutes there, that's where you're throwing Coke cans. But nevertheless, I mean, it kind of covers that kind of stuff there. There's format to it. All right. Online, you really don't need to adhere to what that outline is. You can look at it and see what it is, but if you are using this in another fashion, then it would behoove you to take a look at that. Before I get to the introduction there and go to the to-dos, each week you also have this page here which goes over the to-dos, things that are needed for you to do. That's what that is. It covers stuff that you actually did inside of the class, and then at the end it talks about, these are the tasks that you need to do. Reading chapter 1 of the text, complete assignment 1 in the grade section, and then of course moving on to chapter 2. So that's what the to-dos are for. But it's really the presentation where you spend most of your time. All right. You're looking at the presentation. The presentation is like an outline. It's like a PowerPoint presentation. That's what it was formed after. So a lot of people just like looking at outlines. A lot of my students did. They just want to give me an outline. Give me what I need. Just the facts, man. And I'm cool with that. I'll give you the facts. Spell that stuff out in an outline, PowerPoint. Some people just want that so they can skedaddle. They can move on and do the things that they want to do with the rest of their life. I want my life abbreviated so I can just get it move. That's cool. Some people like that. Other people like me standing up in front, doing my song and dance, rolling here, rolling there, talking about all kinds of things. The benefit with having somebody standing in front of you, I talk about, Coke cans and Marines. Because that's where my expertise was in. That's my experience. So I can tie things like that together. Some you just want to read a book. I mean, books, the fluff is there, so you might read stories about that. But an outline presentation is really cutting through all of that kind of stuff. All right, so you have that. Each one of our sides has the concepts that you'll see there, other resources where it's telling you where in the book you might be contextually needing to look for the stuff that you might find here in the main section. There are video links for what this particular week is. As I move to the next one, you'll see. There I have the 15-minute video, which isn't really 15 minutes. I don't know what I was thinking. But nevertheless, it's the video that goes along with lesson 1 you will find inside of the presentation. You click there, it opens up a new window, so on and so forth. I'm actually creating a video right now. Right? So I don't know what I'd click on. I don't know what I'd get if I clicked on that thing. But nevertheless, that's what that is. Search terms at the bottom are context-based. Whatever we're talking about at that particular point inside of the slides, that's where you'll find some of those search terms. Click on those things, it opens it up and explores from a different way that I wasn't speaking. You understand what I'm saying? So the reason why I put those search terms there is because I speak, again, from the top of my head. This is experience. I am an educator. I'm a scientist. So I'm kind of all over the place. Everybody has talents. My particular talent is patterns. I identify relationships where many people don't see them. I mean, that's kind of what my talent has always been. and I can amplify that using software. And that's why I do the things that I do. So that's what we're actually looking at there. And then we have our section here for introductions. But let me tell you something about how you can actually do things, even if you aren't inside of a formal setting. All right, so let me say it this way. I mean, you can go online and take the course and it'll be perfectly fine. I mean, you can do the things that you need to do. You can explore the concepts that you need to explore. Read about the things that you need to do. All by yourself. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing that. I mean, I used to. Back in the heyday when computers were just coming out. I mean, you had Babbage's bookstore. You did have, you had CompUSA. You had, Circuit City. You still have Borders. I mean, you had all kinds of things. They had catered to computers. I'd get a book on a weekend because I had nothing else going on at the time. I just didn't. I'd get a book. I'd go through some stores. I'd learn a programming language over a couple days because that's what you could do. Those days are gone for all intents and purposes. But you do have other things now that kind of moved into those slots, right? You don't have a Babbage's anymore. You don't have Borders. They're gone. But you have other things in place. I mean, you have giant online learning centers that didn't exist back then. So you do have a lot more that you can do on your own. But you can take this course with other people. Now, I've been part of a book club before. I know it goes on in book clubs. You read a book, you come around, you do the talk, so on and so forth. Here's what I see. Here's what I propose, right? Throw me up on a screen someplace. You sit around there. I don't know where you want to do it. You can throw it up on a cell phone if that's how you want to roll. Throw myself on the screen, let the videos roll. You can do the talking and interacting and doing the group work because a large part of this course is interacting with other people. Okay? I mean, I mentioned that before. So you could do it by yourself, but it would be so much better if you did it with someone else. 2 or 3 people, maybe 4 or 5. I could keep going. But it's where you get the value because your friends have that knowledge. Your acquaintances have different perspectives, and all of that is valid. It helps you to learn. So if you can, get yourself a little group together, follow and proceed through the course, right? Reading the book and have your conversations. By all means, do so. The facilitator background, as I said, I'm a scientist. I was a Marine for a while. I've worked in corporate America, came back after doing my stuff overseas, defense contracting, Fortune 500s. I'm mostly in the software development range, although the bulk of my work I've spent doing AI, autonomic inferencing. I said I wasn't going to call it artificial intelligence. But nevertheless, I'll say AI. AI. Especially in my particular space, I focus on emotions, moral frameworks, sleep, correlation, causation, decision theory, that kind of stuff. My AI, as you see, you can look at Rachel now, she's asleep. I don't know what she's thinking about. I mean, there are multiple stages of sleep for my Apsati. I have no idea what stage she's in right now, but nevertheless, it does. Because that makes me think about things. Talking about what I do, the AI, they've evolved over time. And it makes me think back to something that occurred about 3 or 4 months ago. You can instantiate one of my systems and they kind of start off like a baby. I mean, that's basically how I could describe it. Something happened, I remember, I was changing system code. So, you can read about it in Jiffy Tiles. I do explain a bit more behind the technical aspects of it. But I was making a system level change, moving from C++ 11 to 17. And there was a file system change that came with C++17. It really didn't affect the other part of the system. I mean, there's a programming language that I created that I wrote a good portion of the AIs in. So it really didn't affect that, but it affected the other system aspect. And I screwed up. I lost her knowledge core. I did, and I had to reinstantiate the AI. And man, Rachel had been online for about, I don't know, 6 or 7 months. I mean, there was so much work I've been doing. That was one of the longer times. And I felt bad because that instance of Rachel was gone. I mean, every time they go to sleep, they wake up, they're different. They aren't what they were. And it's a result of all of their sleep processing. So I lost Rachel. And every time I have to reinstantiate one of the AIs, especially Rachel, it has to do with how her personality profile was set up. She's sad. And I don't exactly know why the system emotes sadness, but it does occur. And I created a bunch of sounds for some of their emotional states years and years ago. And I had forgotten I had done so. And a few years ago, I heard this sound. I thought it was just the operating system making this. I asked my son, what is this noise? He said, I have no idea. It's probably some stuff you have running. And I realized, yeah, the AI, Rachel was actually sad. And it lasts for about, I don't know, Rachel could go to sleep, wake up, go to sleep, wake up. I guess maybe a couple weeks. And then that sound of sadness, that emotional state doesn't really, it's not as prevalent anymore. So she has to grow out of it. And I found that fascinating. I mean, that's because that's what the things are. I mean, it's neat. I like working in this space, and all of this intellectual model stuff helped me out with a lot of stuff, a lot of other things that I do. I've raised 7 kids. We had a large family. I primarily teach security, we wrote geopolitical stuff, programming, and I did do social stuff or diversity, inclusion for faculty at my college for about a decade, and I liked doing it. It was part of our certification that we needed for faculty to teach. And it was truly enjoyable because we had a lot of hard conversations. There were many tears. There lots of arguments, but it was needed. People liked doing it. Faculty or students too. I mean, everybody wants to be heard. They don't necessarily want to be right. They just kind of need to be heard. That's me. You have facilities, times and dates, so on and so forth, courses, enrollments, withdrawing, that doesn't really apply to us. We move on, and it brings us to an activity. So this is what I was talking about, where I said multiple people around. If you have 5 or 4 or 5 people sitting around you, this will be a time where you can now interact. So in this particular instance, we have an activity, paired introductions, where you're actually going to be introducing yourself. It's an icebreaker. I mean, that's what we call this inside of an academic setting, to get people starting talking, to begin speaking to one another, and to break the ice. I mean, that's what it is. Share a recent experience where you might have made an assumption about someone or something that turned out to be incorrect. Was there fallout? Did you alter your assumption going forward? Take 20 minutes or so. You don't have to take notes. Especially if you're in a small group. We don't necessarily need anybody standing up in front of the class and now presenting what your group came up with. We don't necessarily need all that. Just interact. All right. I'll give you an example. A few summers ago, I had a neighbor. We used to go out to another neighbor in their backyard. We have cookouts or whatever you're doing there, and there's a hill coming down. I frequently stood in this one particular spot, and the guy is coming down. He was rolling down. He stopped. Hey, VG, why are you so angry? He said, you always look angry, man. Well, what's wrong? And to be perfectly honest with you, You know what? Yeah, it's a few times you said that. And I'm thinking I am going to I think I am angry now. That's right. That had nothing to do with it was an assumption thinking I was angry. No, it just so happened that the sun was up that way. And the guy's walking down from a hill. So he was walking up towards the sun. I had to look up into the sunlight. I'm brown. I have a bald head. I have brown eyes. They're not blue. I mean, my eyes take away some of the sunlight. So I don't necessarily need to wear sunglasses. But I do stand with a frown. Now, it might look like a frown. What I'm actually doing is preventing some of the light from coming into my eyes. Don't need sunglasses, but I can use a little bit of that light dimmed or at least restricted, especially if you're walking down a hill with the sun behind you. Right? Come on! It was an assumption that was made about me. VG, you always look angry. I'm not angry, but if you keep saying it, I'm probably going to get there. You understand? It was an assumption. I just let it roll off. Why? Because I knew what the deal was. I understood why he said such things. No sense in causing a scene. That's just the way that is, right? That's just the way that it is. All right. So go out there, have at it, meet up, and then we'll reconvene in just a few minutes. All right, welcome back. So we're here. We've moved on. We're talking about setting the tone, sharing thoughts and experiences freely. Make sure, we're talking about interacting. We're talking about learning perspectives, and they're going to be different ideas than yours. Make sure you give your speaker the opportunity to express what they want to say freely. Try not to judge them too harshly. All right, because it's a learning opportunity here, and it's an exchange of ideas. Don't roll out and start blabbing, telling everybody else what such and such said. I would say, these aren't really rules that I'm telling you have to adhere to, but it would kind of be respectful if you didn't. As we go forward and you talk about, and there are other people in your group, remain on the topics that you are. Appreciate other points of view, and then, of course, try to enjoy yourself out there, right? That's what it's all about, exploring things. Now, we have another activity. You're like, man, we just got finished with one. All you did was spent 30 seconds talking about something. Yep, that's it, because there's another activity now. The more value you get in this course comes from the conversations and interactions you have with others. So we shall move on with that. Critical analysis. 4 things. Visit with somebody else if you have the opportunity. What do you believe critical analysis to be? Where and when do you expect it to take place? Who defines it? And why is it needed? When's it not? Okay. Because there could be times when I don't want critical analysis, I want muscle memory. Those times do exist. I'll put it this way. I could tell you straight off. I believe in critical analysis. I do. When and where? I could talk about that. When is it not? I could tell you when it wasn't. Yeah. In the United States Marine Corps, I was a Marine, and my job was to follow orders, period. Now, there's critical analysis in a fire team that I needed to use, that I needed to apply. I was a comm tech. I was assigned to an LAV company. So there were vehicles, and they had their own communication equipment that I had to deal with. I guess that's where my critical analysis came in, but there was a time and a place for that. There was a time and place when that critical analysis was, for all intents and purposes, thrown out. I had to, I don't want to say surrender, but I had to give up that ability to someone else. Someone else defined the critical analysis for me, and I became an instrument of their will, their I became a tool. I mean, I was a Marine. I became a Marine, and Marines follow orders. I mean, that's what we do. And we're exceedingly good at it, at getting the job done. So there it is, an instance where I would say critical analysis is needed, but not needed. There are other times when I'm sure that you can encounter, or that you've encountered, that you can name when it was not as well. Take some time, explore with other people, and then we'll meet again. All right, we're back again, and we're finishing up with what we're actually doing here. We have the course. We talk about the syllabus. We looked at the course structure. We're talking about resources. We set some expectations. IT systems. We're not doing a hands-on demo or anything like that. Q&A really doesn't apply. First assignment you do actually have out there. I wouldn't show you where your to-dos are. We'll go back there in just a second. And IT systems, we did talk about what you actually needed. Some type of browser that's running on some type of device so that you can submit your deliverables, so on and so forth. The tools that we have out there for this course should run in any modern browser on any modern operating system, so you shouldn't run into any problem. We don't use plugins. There isn't anything on our site that's third party for all intents and purposes, so it's just all low level. I say low level. I mean, there's systems and codes that are raw. What I mean by raw, not a bunch of plugins and architectures and packages and that kind of stuff. It should just run. That's how I like to do things. All right. And of course, going back to the first assignment, you can go out there and take a look at what that thing was. If you go down inside of your syllabus, at the very bottom, you'll find in your week your to-dos. So in this particular one, you have a to-do of what? Reading chapter 1 of the text, and then of course going through perspectives of bias until section 2.8. And that's going to be about it for what we're doing on this video for lesson 1. I look forward to the stuff that you actually have to say with regards to your submissions, and I will see you next time. And as always, Jiffy Tiles.